Hey guys, welcome back. It's Nick here again at J-Tech. Today what we're going to do is we're going to troubleshoot some codes on this brown Peterbilt. I got a code popping up, so I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to troubleshoot that code and fix the problem. So let's get started. Alright, so first things first. I had to hook up my OTC adapter. I'm going to make sure it's the right one. This one's pretty nice. It'll tell you, when your power is hooked up, if it's reading the system, and it'll even tell you what system it's running. See if you can see that here. It's kind of hard to read, it's bright out here. Let me just make sure you got the right pin connection. You got everything hooked up. Go ahead and turn the power on to the truck. And then next thing you're going to do here is you're going to come over. By now you should be familiar with ProDemand. So what I did is I just went ahead and looked up the truck. It's all up here. Make sure you put the VIN number in. This one just happens to be saved. And you're going to come over here to Engine Performance. Right to here, and then you're going to come down here to testing and diagnosis, and then this is the one for this actual truck. So we're going to click on that. All right. So while that's loading, I clicked on all that because I know what this truck is. You're going to go ahead and open up your OTC program. All right. Okay. So once it gets loaded up, it should look something like this. This is just a program I happen to be using. You can go over here to your diagnostic functions. Go ahead and open that up. DTCs. And this is the J1708 systems. We're going to click on that. It'd be great if this computer would respond. There we go. And now it's going to tell me the code. Here we go. So what's it say? It says 128 engine number 1, engine coolant temp, code 110, voltage normal or shorted high. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back into ProDemand and we're going to look that up and see what that is. Alright, so you get back here in ProDemand. Once you click on the motor you're looking for, here it's the 3176 Bravo. And from there, you're going to go to System Operation under Engine Performance. You're going to want to click on the one with diagnostic codes. You're going to come all the way down here, so it says 110.3 Coolant Temp Sensor Open Circuit. So that's the one we want. So essentially, where it says 110.3, that's actually step 1. Connect the EST and know all active diagnostic codes. We've just done that. So that's kind of self-explanatory. Step 2 here says inspect electrical connectors and wiring. So what we're going to do is walk over to the actual wiring that's giving us a problem and perform a 10-pound pull test on the wires and ECM related with active diagnostic code. Alright, we'll check all the connection, inspect the harness. This is where you're going to do your physical and visual inspection. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we're on the passenger side of the vehicle now. Now on this P, the coolant temp sensor, it's tucked way back in there. It's kind of hard to see, but I can see that it's connected and it's not loose. But there is a pigtail for it, and it's right here. It's right here, all right? I just unplugged it. But what you want to do is give that a good pull, give it a good visual test, make sure nothing's broken. It looks like it has been taped a time or two. It's been repaired. But other than that, it looks like everything is in good working order. Nothing's real loose. Everything appears to be the way it needs to be. So I checked the sensor as well, so let's move on to the next step. Okay, so step 3 is saying disconnect sensor and ensure an open circuit diagnostic code becomes active. Alright, so I did walk over and disconnect it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our code reader. The key in the ignition is on. Okay, so I'm going to clear all these faults. And we're going to see if this code will pop back up with the thing, with the connector disconnected. All right, so it came back. So let's see here, step 3. If not okay, there's a short circuit between sensor harness connector and ECM. Sensor must be left disconnected. Go to the next step. So the next step, it said skip to step 6 if it was still a code. And we do still have a code, so this says disconnect ECM connector J2P2 and inspect for active diagnostic codes. So let's go disconnect the ECM and run this code again, see what happens. Alright, as you can see, or you can't see here, step 6, it says to disconnect the ECM connector J2P2 and inspect for active diagnostic codes like I just said. We want to ensure the ignition's off, the engine's off, and not disconnect the ECM, which is what I just did. I'll show you in a second. Perform a complete inspection of both the halves of the connectors and for corrosion and moisture. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll move on to B and C. So let's do that first. Let's do a visual first. I'll walk over here to the truck. As you can see, I have disconnected the ECM here. It's just a little Allen screw in the back here comes off. So what we're looking at is the seals. You know, make sure no moisture's gotten in there. You know, this thing on this truck obviously has been on and off of here 100 times, to be honest. But you know, everything still appears to be in good working order. Nothing looks to be, nothing in here feels wrong, or there's no cracks. None of the prongs are missing. So let's read on and see what it says. Okay, next thing we're going to do, with ignition on and engine off, observe active diagnostic code screen. So, the ignition is on, the engine is off. And now it says here, take a note, all sensor open circuit diagnostic codes will be active while engine harness is disconnected. Observe and focus on diagnostic codes for suspected sensor only. So essentially what that's saying is once I clear these, we should have a lot more pop up. But it should also, what we need to focus on is the initial one we came to check out in the first place. So let's clear these, refresh it, and see what happens. There we go, boom. So along with our original one, which is the engine coolant temperature here, all these other ones popped up as well. So that means we've checked the pigtail on the other side, everything seemed to be working. We unhooked it, ran the test, code was still there. Now we've come to the driver's side of the truck, unhooked the ECM, ran the test, and it's showing that all these are active. So that means both ends of this circuit are good. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, so now with the switch ignition off and engine off, connect the 40 terminal breakout T. We're not going to use breakout T's. We're going to use T-pins. So it's saying with a terminal on both ends, fabricated jumper wire, we're going to use the T-pins. Insert jumper between sensor signal terminal, which is 14, and terminal 30, which is the common. So what I'm going to do is show you on the back of the ECM where those are. Then I'm going to jump the two together, and then I'm going to verify an open circuit and short circuit diagnostic code is active as indicated. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, this is going to be kind of hard to see, but if I'm looking for my common, my 30 and 14, what I'm going to do is, if I look at the back of the harness connection here, they're numbered like a grid pattern, all right? I understand, guys, it's really hard to see, but you can take my word for it. The back of this harness is numbered, okay? And all you do is you figure out where those are, okay? And how it connects back up to the ECM, all right? And then you find the coinciding pin that's sticking out of the ECM there. You can see it, all right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my common and my 14, and I'm going to jump them together. And when I do that, I'm going to run my code again. And what that's going to tell me is if the ECM is good or not on this end, if it's reading properly, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and jump those two, and then let's run that code again. Okay, guys, it's going to look something like this. As you can see, I got it connected to the pins on the ECM. I got it connected to my common, then my pin number 14. You know, that's what it was calling for on Pro Demand. When doing this, just ensure that they're not touching any other pins. They're on there nice and tight, and they're not touching anything else, because it will mess with the results. Okay. Now let's come over here and check our results. All right. Now if you look closely here, I'll tell you what. I'll clear them. We'll run them again. Now let's see if the code changes. Alright, so we got our engine codes, 128, engine coolant temperature, 110, voltage below normal or shorted low. So it changed from shorted high to shorted low. So it did change. Alright, now let's see what we do now. Okay guys, so what this boils down to is, it's telling me that my harness is bad. It says that the ECM was good. Alright, and it's saying that my wires at the other end of the pigtail are good, where the sensor is at. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a multimeter, and I'm going to go from my C-hole in the harness over to my 14 prong in the ECM, and I'm going to find out for sure if my harness is no good, because we know we're good at both ends of the harness. Now we just got to make sure for a fact that it's the harness that's the problem. So we're going to jump that real quick. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Okay guys, let's take a look at what I've done. Let me explain to you what I did here. Let's walk over to the passenger side of the truck. So what we got here is I've gone to the pigtail. Alright, and I went into the C-hole of the pigtail. Alright, just put a T-pin and I connected the wire. Okay, and that jump wire is going to run back over the top of the motor to where I just was. Okay, and I'll show you why. It's still connected, as you can see, and I'm still on my 14 pin, my number 14 pin. Okay, now what that means, sorry, this camera's a little off. Where my camera? There it is, down here. Okay, so I'm still connected, right? So what I'm doing is I'm checking both ends of the harness. Okay, now I'm gonna get my ohms. I'm gonna check my ohms with my multimeter. Now if this harness is good, right, it's gonna read the resistance. If this is no good, right, it's probably going to be out of limits or an astronomical number. Okay, so let me get my multimeter, hook this up, and we'll find out right now if this harness is any good or not. Okay guys, so what I went ahead and did is I got my multimeter out, and I hooked my multimeter to the 14 prong, okay, number 14 prong, and then I took the other end of the multimeter and rehooked it to the wire that's jumping from side to side of the truck. That way I close the loop here. And I got my multimeter, right? As you can see, it's set to ohms, right? And we got OL. And many of you know that means out of limits, which means in this wiring harness, all right, between the two ends, there's no resistance, which means this wiring harness is no good, right? So, we come back here to Pro Demand. Come on down here, and it's going to say wiring harness has a problem, repair, replace it. Ensure all diagnostic codes are erased. Okay, so at this point, what we would have to do is replace the wiring harness. Okay guys, so that was just a quick roundabout way to check a code here using the multimeter and the T-pins and all that. So what happened was we had the code, right, as a review. We had the code. It read that the coolant sensor, the coolant temp sensor, wasn't working. The first thing we did was check that side, the sensor. It appeared to be working. Then we checked the ECM. Once we disconnected the ECM, all the codes ran, and then we just jumped those two wires, which changed just the two prongs, the 30, which is the common, and the 14, which told us that the ECM is working, in fact. So it wasn't the ECM, and it wasn't the other side of the harness. And then the only thing left to do was to check it at both ends to see if there was resistance in the middle, which would tell us if the harness was good, and that's what we did, and there was no resistance. So that means somewhere within that harness, there's a problem. Now, you could chase that problem down within the harness. It's going to take you some time, labor, money. The easiest way to fix it would probably be just to replace the whole harness. So that's it for now, guys. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks.